My name is Caleb. I'm 33 now, and for a few years I worked at a funeral home in Ohio. I never thought I'd talk about it publicly, but it's been sitting in my head too long. I can't sleep through the night anymore. Every time I close my eyes, I hear that low hum, the one that used to come from the cooler. It's steady, mechanical, almost harmless, until you've heard it for thousands of hours. Then it stops sounding like a machine and starts sounding alive. I started that job when I was 25. I didn't have much going on back then. No degree, no family close by, and no real plan. I just needed a paycheck. The funeral home wasn't a place you dreamed of working, but it was quiet, stable, and no one cared much if you didn't talk a lot. I fit right in. There were 5 of us full-time. My main job was prep and transport, cleaning, dressing, tagging, and helping the embalmer when needed. The building itself wasn't big. 2 viewing rooms, 1 office, a prep area, and a cooler in the back that could hold up to 6 at once. It was always cold in there, but that wasn't what bothered you after a while. It was the stillness, that soundless air that felt too thick to breathe. People always ask if working around the dead is scary. It's not, at least not in the way they think. Death is quiet, predictable. You get used to it faster than you'd expect. The smell of chemicals, the hum of the cooler, the sound of metal carts rolling across tile, that becomes your background noise. You don't think about it until something breaks the pattern. I used to like the order of it. Every night ended with things being exactly where they should be. The logs filled, the tags double-checked, the cooler locked. I liked that sense of control. It made the silence feel safe, until it didn't. The first time I noticed something strange, it was small. A woman in her late 70s had come in from a nearby hospital. No autopsy, natural causes. I did the intake myself, logged her at 7:16 p.m., removed her jewelry, sealed her wedding ring in a bag with her name, labeled everything, and placed her in the cooler. All routine. The next morning, I rolled her out for prep. Everything looked fine until I noticed the tag on her wrist. Same number, same label. But the handwriting wasn't mine. The loop in the R was different. I checked the intake photo. The original tag had my handwriting. This one didn't, and there was a faint pink mark around her wrist, like someone had tied something tight, then removed it. I know I didn't miss that. I told myself maybe I'd written a replacement and forgotten. That kind of thing happens when you're tired. I logged it as checked, verified, and moved on. But 2 days later, it happened again. Different case. A man, late 60s. I logged him in, bagged his watch and wallet, zipped the pouch, locked the cooler. Everything was normal. Next morning, the zipper was open about an inch. The bag looked like it had shifted positions. I closed it, made sure everything matched the paperwork, and again told myself I was imagining it. But when things start repeating, you can't keep pretending it's you. Over the next week, it happened 4 more times. Small things, always small, but always wrong. A clip in the wrong place, a tag retied, a property bag moved slightly. Once, I found a pouch zipped the wrong direction. Left-handed, I'm right-handed, that's when I started testing it. I put a small strip of blue painter's tape under each zipper flap. Hidden, barely visible, but it would tear if someone opened it. I drew a small dot on the cooler latch, just a tiny black speck. I even wrote down where I placed each property bag. The next morning, 2 strips were torn. The cooler latch dot had shifted slightly, and the alarm log showed no entry. I stood there for a long time, just staring at that door. I checked every lock, every camera, every piece of tape. No alarms triggered, no sign of forced entry. Nothing. That day, I didn't say a word to anyone, but I started watching. I'd check the cooler first thing every morning before anyone else arrived. And each time, something was off. Never enough to be obvious, just enough to tell me someone had been there. I started staying later, sometimes until 11 or midnight. I'd tell them I was catching up on paperwork, but I was really just waiting. hoping I'd hear something, see something, and eventually I did. The prep room had a narrow corridor leading to the cooler. The first night I heard it, it was faint. 2 short clicks of metal, maybe the latch shifting. Then silence. I told myself it was the compressor. Then it came again, 2 short, 1 long, like a pattern. I walked toward the door, slowly. The air felt colder than usual. When I reached the handle, it was cold too. Not the steady chill of metal, but that sharp kind of cold that feels wrong. I didn't open it. I just stood there, listening until the sound stopped. I left early that night. The next morning, the tape on one pouch was torn again. That was the moment I knew it wasn't my imagination. Someone was coming in after hours. But how? The place was locked every night, alarm-armed, cameras outside. So I decided to find out. I bought a cheap motion camera from a store across town. Small, black, night vision, motion triggered. I covered the red LED with tape and hid it behind the mop closet, pointed directly at the cooler. That night, I locked up like usual. The next morning, I came in early, pulled the SD card, and watched the footage on my phone in the break room. Most of it was nothing, just grainy footage of an empty hallway. Then, around 4 a.m., the cooler door opened. A figure stepped inside. Light-colored scrubs. We wore charcoal gray. The person moved slowly, deliberately, like they'd done it before. They opened one pouch, leaned close, adjusted something, zipped it up again. Then another. At one point they turned slightly, and the night vision light caught a round patch on their chest. A logo. I paused it, zoomed in, but it was too blurry. They pushed one of the gurneys halfway out, turned it the wrong way, head right instead of head left, then rolled it back in and left. The door closed. The alarm light on the wall stayed steady. I sat there watching that loop over and over until the screen went dark. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I waited until my boss came in. I didn't know how to tell him, so I just handed him my phone and said, "Watch this." He didn't speak for a long time. When the clip ended, he said, "That's not one of us." Then he called someone. A man arrived an hour later, older, calm, professional. Said his name was Mark. He handled compliance between facilities. He watched the clip twice, paused on the chest logo and said, "That looks like Green Hollow." Green Hollow. The nursing home. He asked if any of us worked there part-time. None of us did. He just nodded and said quietly, "Then I think I know who this is." And he was right. The next morning, a woman in light scrubs came in. Pale, tired, polite. She said her name was Linda, and that she worked nights at Green Hollow. She said she'd heard there had been some confusion with personal items, rings, watches, wallets, and that she came to straighten it out. She said she'd come by a few times just to make sure everything matched. She said she didn't mean any harm, that she was helping. That word again, helping. Then she said something that made the room go dead silent. "I just didn't like how they looked in the morning." She said it calmly, almost proudly. No one spoke for a while after she said that. I remember the sound of the clock on the wall, one loud click for every second. My boss finally asked her what she meant. Linda said she didn't like coming in during the day because people got nervous, so she came at night when it was quiet. She said the back door latch didn't always catch right, and that if you pulled it a certain way, it opened without setting off the alarm. She said she didn't steal anything. She didn't even seem to understand why we were upset. Her voice shook when she said, "I just wanted them to look right. I wanted the families to be at peace." She said sometimes the bodies were positioned wrong, or their faces looked tense, or their hands were uneven. She said she fixed that. She adjusted things. She made them look peaceful. She said it like she was doing us a favor. Mark, the inspector, leaned forward. His voice stayed calm. "You understand you can't be here after hours," he said. "You understand this is trespassing, right?" She nodded, eyes wet. "I didn't mean any harm," she said again. "I just wanted to help." I remember the way she said help. like it meant something sacred to her. My boss told her they'd handle it quietly if she promised never to come back. She agreed, crying, saying she just wanted to make things right. They didn't call the police, they changed the locks. That was it. I wanted to believe it was over. I really did. For a few nights, nothing happened. The tape stayed intact. The cooler door was sealed. I could almost breathe again. But even when everything looked normal, the silence didn't feel the same anymore. You know when a room feels like it's watching you? Like the air itself is waiting for something? That's how it felt. I stayed late one night, catching up on paperwork. The others had gone home. Around 10:40 p.m., I heard something from the prep room. A faint metal tap, soft but clear. Not random. A rhythm. 2 taps. Pause. 1 more. My stomach tightened instantly. I walked down the hall slowly. The green light from the eye wash station flickered under the door. I stopped, listening. Nothing. I reached for the handle. It was cold. Not normal cold, but the kind of cold that sinks through your fingers. I opened the door an inch and looked inside. The prep room was empty. The cooler door was closed. Everything looked normal, except for the handle. It was trembling slightly, like it had just been touched. I stared at it until it stopped moving. Then I closed the door, turned the lock, and walked out without turning off the lights. I didn't look back. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening for that same sound. The small hum that had followed me from the building, I could almost hear it under everything else. The next morning, I came in early and checked the cooler. One piece of tape was torn. I checked the alarm system. No breach. The log was clean. I didn't say a word. I just fixed the tape and tried to work like it didn't matter. But it did. After that night, it started happening again. Slowly. The same quiet pattern. A pouch zipped wrong. A bag moved. A tag rewritten in handwriting that wasn't mine. I started second-guessing everything. I'd stand in the prep room, staring at a zipper for minutes, trying to remember how I'd left it. The others didn't notice anything, or they didn't care. People in that line of work learn to look the other way. They think if you don't name it, it doesn't exist. But it existed. A week later, I stayed until midnight again. Rain was hitting the windows. I was sorting property bags when I heard a sound I'll never forget. Not the hum, not the pipes, a zipper. It was faint but unmistakable. The slow rasp of plastic teeth being pulled open. I froze. My hands went cold instantly. I turned toward the cooler. The door was closed, but I swear I could feel movement behind it, like pressure shifting in the air. I stepped closer. My own footsteps echoed off the tiles. I stopped right in front of the door. My reflection stared back at me in the steel surface. I waited. The handle twitched. Not much, just enough to make the light reflect differently off it. Every instinct told me to run, but I couldn't move. I just stood there, my pulse pounding in my ears. Then the vibration stopped. I reached out, touched the handle. It was ice cold. Colder than the air around it. I backed away slowly, then turned and walked out. I didn't shut off the lights. I didn't lock the office. I drove home in silence and didn't look in the rearview mirror once. The next morning, everything looked perfect. Every pouch sealed. Every bag aligned. The logbook had clean signatures. No initials that weren't mine this time. That perfection scared me more than anything else, because it meant whoever had been doing it, or whatever was happening, had learned to hide. I didn't tell anyone. I knew what they'd say, that I was tired, that I'd imagined it, and maybe I wanted to believe that too. But I couldn't stop thinking about Linda, about the way she said she wanted to make things right. That's what terrified me, because she believed it. I started seeing her in my head at night, not her face, just the way she moved in that video, calm, efficient, familiar. I started dreaming about the prep room. I'd walk in, and everything would be spotless. No tools, no bags, no sound except that low hum. I'd look at the cooler door, and it would be slightly open, just enough to see darkness inside. Then I'd hear it. The zipper, slow and steady. That's when I'd wake up. I began leaving work earlier. I'd say I had errands or headaches. The truth is, I couldn't stand being alone in that building after dark anymore. Every sound, every click, every shift in air pressure had made me jump. I knew I had to quit, but even then I couldn't just walk away. There was a part of me that needed to know, needed to understand what had really happened. So, on my last night before leaving, I stayed late one final time. Everyone else had gone home. The building was silent except for the low hum of the cooler and the soft buzz of the exit sign. I turned off the lights in the viewing rooms, one by one, until only the glow from the hallway remained. Then I walked into the prep room and stood in front of the cooler door. The handle didn't move. The air didn't shift. Everything was still. But I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was standing on the other side of that door, waiting for me to open it. I didn't. I turned around, walked out, and never went back. When I walked out that last night, I didn't tell anyone I was leaving for good. I just didn't come back. I figured I'd take a few days off, think it through, maybe find something new. But those few days turned into weeks. I couldn't bring myself to even drive past that street again. At first, I thought the silence would help me recover. I moved into a smaller apartment, took a maintenance job at a hospital. Same pay, less death. But hospitals have that same sound, the same constant hum under everything. The air vents, the compressors, the monitors, they all blend into one tone that never stops. At first it was comforting, familiar. Then it wasn't. I'd catch myself freezing mid-shift, realizing I was listening for something. A click, a zipper, a sound that didn't belong. It was like part of my brain stayed back there in that cold room, waiting for the next noise. I tried to ignore it. I tried sleeping with music, fans, podcasts, anything to drown it out. But the hum always found a way through. It's not loud. It's faint, steady, mechanical, like breathing, but too even to be human. Sometimes I'd wake up at 3 in the morning, the exact time the cooler used to cycle. I'd sit up, heart pounding, listening, nothing. But I'd still get up and check the door locks, the windows, the closet. Old habits. It's been years, and I still do it. I told myself that what happened back then had an explanation, that Linda was just unwell, that she meant no harm, that it was human error, not something bigger or stranger. But if that's true, why does the memory still feel unfinished? Why does the silence feel heavy again whenever I think about it? Sometimes at work, I have to go down to the basement to fix things. Lights, pipes, wiring. The morgue is down there too. I avoid that hallway as much as I can, but one night they sent me there anyway. The floor was empty. It was past midnight. The hall was long, white and cold. I could see the double doors to the morgue at the end. No windows, just the red exit sign reflecting on polished tile. While I worked, I heard it. 2 short taps, 1 long, exactly like before. The screwdriver slipped from my hand and hit the floor. The sound echoed forever. I didn't move. The air felt too still. I waited, staring at those doors, barely breathing. Nothing happened. The taps didn't repeat. No one came out. But when I picked up the screwdriver, my hand was shaking. The hallway felt tighter. I could feel the hum under my feet. Low, vibrating through the concrete. I left everything as it was and went upstairs. I didn't tell anyone. I knew what they'd say. When I got home that night, I found something in my jacket pocket, a small strip of blue painter's tape, the same kind I used back then. Old, folded, the edges curled. I don't know how it got there. I must have put it there myself years ago and forgotten, or maybe I kept it for a reason. Now I carry it in my wallet. It's torn and dusty, but still faintly sticky on one side. I don't know why I keep it. Maybe because it's proof. Proof that something really did happen, even if I can't explain it. A few months ago, I had to drive through that part of town for work. I told myself I wouldn't stop, but when I saw the old street sign, I slowed down. The funeral home was still there. New name, new paint, but the same layout, same windows, same back door. I parked across the street and sat there for a few minutes. The parking lot lights buzzed softly. The building looked smaller than I remembered. Normal. Empty. Then just as I was about to leave, someone walked out the side door. A woman. Light-colored scrubs, her hair tied back. She carried a small black bag and moved with the same calm precision I remembered. She got into her car and drove away. I couldn't see her face. It probably wasn't her, but as she drove past me, I felt that hum again, deep in my chest, like a memory vibrating under my ribs. The same pitch as the cooler, the same rhythm. That sound has never left me. It follows me into sleep, into silence, into any place that's too still. I tell myself it's just the mind filling in gaps, that it's what happens when you listen too closely for too long. But every time I hear that hum, I think about Linda, about how calm she was, how she said she just wanted to help, how she thought she was fixing things that weren't broken. I think that's what scares me the most, the idea that she believed she was doing something good. Because if people can convince themselves that deeply, maybe the worst things we do aren't mistakes at all. Maybe they're just habits. Now, when I close my eyes, I see the prep room again, the stainless tables, the green light, the cooler door half open. I hear that slow, careful zipper, teeth separating one by one, and somewhere behind that sound, there's a quiet breath. I still don't open my eyes. I just wait for it to stop. I don't believe in ghosts. I believe in what silence can do to a person. I believe that some places remember what we did inside them. The air holds it. The walls breathe it. That's all I can say. If you made it this far, thank you for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe to Mr. Ebon for more real horror stories like this. And if you ever find yourself alone at night, somewhere quiet, somewhere cold, pay attention, because silence isn't always empty.